My name is Zara Blackwell, and 5 years ago, I had everything a 24-year-old could dream of in New York City. A corner office overlooking Central Park at one of Manhattan's most prestigious architecture firms. A sleek apartment in Chelsea that I'd purchased with my first major bonus. A close-knit family who celebrated every one of my achievements with genuine pride. I was the golden child, the success story, the one who had it all figured out. Then I met Marcus Reynolds at a charity gala in the Hamptons. "You're the most fascinating, the woman I've ever met," he whispered that first night, his hazel eyes holding mine with an intensity that made the crowded ballroom disappear. I've never believed in love at first sight until now. Marcus was everything I never knew I wanted: ruggedly handsome, with salt and pepper hair despite being only 35. Charismatic in a way that made everyone gravitate toward him, and seemingly successful with his investment consulting business that took him across the country. He talked about his ranch in Montana, about wanting a simpler life away from the city's chaos, about building something real together. "I've spent my whole life chasing success," he told me on our third date, as we walked along the Hudson River at sunset. "But what's the point of all this if you don't have someone to share it with? Someone real, Zara. Someone like you." 3 months into our whirlwind romance, Marcus proposed on the observation deck of the Empire State Building. "I want to build a life with you in Montana," he said, down on one knee with a 3-carat diamond that caught the city lights. "Away from all this noise. Just us, building our dream home, starting a family." I've never been more certain of anything. My colleagues thought I was having a breakdown when I handed in my resignation. My parents were devastated when I told them I was selling my apartment. My sister Claire begged me to reconsider. "You've worked so hard for everything you have," she pleaded over coffee at our favorite bakery in Soho. "You don't even know him, Zara. This isn't like you." "That's the point," I replied, already mentally packing my life away. "I've always done what was expected. For once, I'm following my heart." I sold my apartment at a loss, eager to liquidate quickly. I withdrew from my 401k, paying the penalty without flinching. I packed 2 suitcases of clothes and shipped 3 boxes of personal items to Marcus's Montana address. The rest: furniture, books, the life I'd built, I either sold or gave away. My father refused to drive me to the airport. "When this falls apart, don't expect us to pick up the pieces," he said, his voice breaking despite his harsh words. I knew it was fear speaking, but it stung nonetheless. The flight to Bozeman felt like crossing a threshold. I was leaving behind the skyscrapers I'd dreamed of designing since I was a little girl, tracing building outlines in my notebook. I was abandoning the network I'd carefully cultivated through internships and late nights. I was walking away from a 6-figure salary and the corner office I'd earned through relentless dedication. All for Marcus, all for love. He met me at the airport with a bouquet of wildflowers and that smile that made my heart race. "Welcome home, future Mrs. Reynolds," he said, kissing me deeply in the middle of the small airport terminal. "I can't believe you're really here." As we drove through the Montana landscape, mountains rising majestically against the vast sky, I felt a mixture of terror and exhilaration. I had never done anything so impulsive, so completely contrary to my methodical nature. "Are you having second thoughts?" Marcus asked, reaching for my hand across the truck's console. "Not one," I lied, pushing down the flutter of anxiety in my chest. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The ranch was everything he'd described: 300 acres of rolling land, with a view of the mountains. A charming, if somewhat dated, main house, and endless potential. It was remote, nearly 40 minutes from the nearest town, but that was part of the appeal, Marcus insisted. "Our own private paradise. We'll design our dream home right there," he said, pointing to a ridge overlooking a small lake. "With your talent and my vision, it'll be spectacular." That night, as we lay in bed in what would be our temporary home until we built our own, I pushed away the last whispers of doubt. I had given up everything for this man, this life. There was no room for regret. "I love you," I whispered into the darkness. "You've made me the happiest man alive," he replied, pulling me closer. "I promise you won't regret this." Little did I know that those words would haunt me for the next 5 years of my life. Little did I know that the man sleeping beside me, the man I had sacrificed everything for, was living a double life that would eventually shatter mine into pieces. The first year in Montana was a dream wrapped in isolation. I threw myself into designing our future home, a modern take on a mountain lodge with sustainable features and panoramic views. Marcus was often away on business trips, sometimes for a week or more, but always returned with expensive gifts and renewed passion. The consulting business is booming, he would explain, showering me with kisses. Just a few more big clients and I can scale back the travel. Then it will be just us, all the time. I believed him because I needed to. I had no job, few local friends, and was nearly 2,000 miles from anyone who knew the real me. My family's calls had dwindled to obligatory holiday check-ins, each conversation strained with unspoken disappointment. When I suggested getting a job at a local architecture firm to keep my skills sharp, Marcus was surprisingly resistant. "Why would you want to work for someone else when you can design our dream home?" he asked, his tone light but his eyes serious. "Besides, I make more than enough for both of us. Focus on making this place perfect." So I did. I designed and redesigned our house plans. I planted a garden. I explored the local towns on the days I could use the truck. I tried to ignore the growing sense that something wasn't right. The construction of our house kept getting delayed. There were always reasons: permit issues, contractor problems, unexpected expenses. 2 years in, we were still living in the original ranch house, which had begun to feel less charming and more confining. "I thought we'd be breaking ground by now," I said, one evening as Marcus returned from another trip. "The timing isn't right yet," he replied, not meeting my eyes. "The market's unstable. We need to be smart about this." That night, while Marcus showered, his phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I had never been the type to snoop, but something intuition, perhaps, made me glance at the screen. A text message preview from someone named Emma Reed. "Kids, miss you. Will you be home for Lily's recital tomorrow?" My blood turned to ice. I picked up the phone, but it was locked. When Marcus emerged from the shower, I was sitting at the kitchen table, my hands clasped so tightly my knuckles were white. "Who's Emma?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. His face, that face I had memorized and adored, flickered with something I had never seen before. Fear. Then, just as quickly, it was replaced with confusion. "Emma, oh, my assistant in Seattle. She handles some personal matters for me sometimes." She mentioned kids and a recital. Marcus laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Her kids, she's a single mom, and I help her out sometimes. Mentorship program through my company." I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it would grow into something I couldn't ignore. Over the next few months, I became a detective in my own relationship. I noted the pattern of his trips, always, including weekends, always to Seattle. I observed how he took calls outside, even in the bitter Montana winter. I started checking his luggage when he returned, finding family photos he had hastily removed from his wallet. Then came the day I found the second phone, tucked inside the lining of his travel bag. It was old school, not a smartphone, a deliberate choice, I realized, to keep it separate from his regular digital life. With trembling hands, I turned it on. No password. Hundreds of text messages between Marcus and Emma. Photos of 2 children, a girl, about 7, and a boy, around 5. Family pictures of the 4 of them, smiling in front of a colonial-style house with a red door. And the most damning evidence, a wedding photo, Marcus in a tuxedo, Emma in a white gown. Dated 8 years ago. I sat on our bedroom floor for hours, scrolling through the evidence of his other life, his real life. The messages painted a clear picture. Marcus Reynolds was a family man from Seattle who told his wife he traveled for business, while telling his Montana girlfriend he was building them a future. When he returned that evening, I was waiting with the phone on the kitchen table between us. "Explain," was all I could say. To his credit, he didn't try to lie, not anymore. "I never meant for it to go this far," he said, his voice hollow. "I fell in love with you, Zara. That wasn't fake. But everything else was," I replied, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "There was never going to be a house on the ridge, was there?" He looked away. "I got caught up in the fantasy. You were so different from my life, in Seattle, exciting, ambitious, everything Emma isn't anymore. How could you do this? I gave up everything for you." "I know," he whispered. "I'm sorry." "Sorry," I laughed, a harsh sound that didn't belong to me. "I abandoned my career. I cut off my family. I sold my home. All for a man who already had a wife and children. Do they even know I exist?" His silence was answer enough. "Get out," I said, my voice finally breaking. Get out before I call your wife and tell her everything. Zara, please, get out. I screamed, throwing the burner phone against the wall where it shattered, much like my heart. He left that night. I sat alone in the house that was never really mine, surrounded by the remnants of a life that had been built entirely on lies. 5 years of my life, gone, my career trajectory, derailed, my family relationships, damaged perhaps beyond repair, had never felt so utterly, completely alone. The morning after Marcus left, I woke up on the couch, my eyes swollen from crying, with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The fog of deception had lifted, and in its place was a cold, hard truth. I had allowed someone else to derail my life. Now it was time to take it back. First, I needed to understand my financial situation. Marcus had managed our money, which I now realized meant keeping me dependent on him. I had some savings left, about $30,000 that I'd kept in a separate account, but the Montana property was in his name. I had no legal claim to the house I'd been living in for 5 years, and I braced myself for the "I told you so" that never came. Tell me what you need, she said instead. 3 days later, Claire arrived at the ranch with a rental car and determination in her eyes. She helped me pack my belongings. 5 years of my life fit into 3 suitcases and 5 boxes. As we loaded the car, I took one last look at the ridge where our house was supposed to stand. You know what's crazy? I said to Claire. Even after everything, part of me still wishes that house had been built. You'll build better ones, she replied, squeezing my hand. Ones that actually exist. We drove to Seattle, a decision I made deliberately. If Marcus had a whole life there, then I wanted to see it with my own eyes. Needed to, really, to fully accept the reality of his betrayal. It wasn't hard to find them. Emma Reynolds was a real estate agent with her photo on bus benches and for sale signs across the north end of the city. Their house, the Colonial, with the red door from the photos, was in a leafy suburb called Ballard. Are you sure you want to do this? Claire asked as we parked across the street. I'm not going to confront them, I assured her. I just need to see it, to make it real. We sat there for 20 minutes before they appeared, loading the children into a minivan, all of them laughing about something. They looked happy, normal. The little girl had Marcus's eyes. The boy had his smile. He has a beautiful family, I said quietly. A family he betrayed. Claire reminded me. Don't romanticize him, Zara. He lied to all of you. She was right, of course. As we drove away, I felt something shift inside me. The last lingering attachment to Marcus and Lee in San Francisco, where Claire had connections in the architecture world. I spent the first month updating my portfolio with designs I'd created during my Montana exile, including the house on the ridge that would never be built. These are extraordinary, said Julian Chen, the founder of Green Horizon Architecture, as he flipped through my work. Claire had arranged the meeting, calling in favors to get me in front of one of the most innovative sustainable design firms on the West Coast. The integration of natural elements with modern functionality. And these sustainability features are years ahead of current trends, he continued, lingering on my Montana house designs. Those were my passion project, I admitted. A house that will never exist. Julian looked up, his expression serious. Every great architect has ghost projects, designs that live only on paper. Sometimes they're the most honest expression of our vision. He offered me a position on the spot, not entry level, despite my 5-year gap, but as a project architect for their new sustainable homes division. The salary was competitive, though less than I'd made in New York. I didn't care. It was a lifeline back to the career I loved. Within 6 months, I had my own apartment in Oakland, a growing reputation at the firm, and the beginnings of a new social circle. I worked relentlessly, channeling all my pain and determination into my designs. The sustainable features I'd researched during my Montana isolation became my specialty, earning me recognition within the industry. 1 year after leaving Montana, I was invited to present at a green architecture conference in Los Angeles. My topic, sustainable luxury. The post-conference reception, a tall man with kind eyes approached me. Your presentation was brilliant, he said, extending his hand. David Mercer, Mercer Development Group. I recognized the name immediately, one of the largest eco-conscious development companies on the West Coast. Zara Blackwell, I replied, shaking his hand. Thank you for coming. Your vision for sustainable luxury homes is exactly what we've been looking for, he said. Would you be interested in discussing a potential collaboration? We're planning an exclusive eco-community in Malibu, and your design philosophy would be perfect. 2 months later, I left Green Horizon with Julian's blessing to start my own firm, Blackwell Sustainable Design. My first major client, Mercer Development Group, the Malibu project would put my name on the map in a way I had only dreamed of before. David and I worked closely on the project, our professional relationship gradually evolving into something more personal. Unlike Marcus, on the 1-year anniversary of my firm's founding, David took me to dinner at a cliffside restaurant in Malibu, overlooking the site where my designs were now becoming reality. To new beginnings, he toasted, his eyes reflecting the same warmth that had drawn me to him from the start. To building things that last, I replied, finally allowing myself to believe in possibilities again. That as we walked along the beach after dinner, I realized something profound. Losing everything had forced me to rebuild with a stronger foundation. My career was flourishing beyond what I could have achieved in New York. I had created a life entirely on my terms, and I had found someone who valued me for exactly who I was, not as an accessory to his double life. For the first time in years, I felt truly, completely free. 18 months after leaving Montana, Blackwell Sustainable Design had grown from a one-woman operation to a 15-person firm with offices in San Francisco and Los Angeles. The Malibu eco-community was featured in Architectural Digest, bringing a flood of high-profile clients seeking my signature blend of luxury and sustainability. My relationship with David had deepened into something I never thought I'd find again: trust. We moved in together, combining our lives in a sleek, sustainable home in the Berkeley Hills that we designed together, a true collaboration between equals. I had reconnected with my family, flying to New York monthly for dinner with my parents and regular brunches with Claire. The wounds were healing, the relationships rebuilding. My father, who had refused to drive me to the airport 5 years earlier, now proudly displayed magazines featuring my work in his office. "I always knew you'd find your way back," he told me during one visit, his eyes misty. "You were too talented not to." Life had settled into a rhythm of success and contentment when Marcus Reynolds reappeared. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was reviewing plans in our San Francisco office when my assistant knocked on my door. "There's someone here to see you," she said. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. "Are you okay?" my assistant asked. "Should I tell him to leave?" I took a deep breath, straightening my shoulders. "No, give me 5 minutes, then send him in." Those 5 minutes were a lifetime. I checked my reflection in my phone's camera, smoothed my hair, and reminded myself of how far I'd come. Whatever Marcus wanted, he had no power over me anymore. When he walked in, I barely recognized him. The confident, charismatic man who had swept me off my feet was gone. In his place stood someone diminished, thinner, grayer, with dark circles under his eyes and a defeat in the power position. "What do you want, Marcus?" He sat in the chair across from me, uninvited. "I've been following your success. The Malibu project, your firm. You've done incredibly well." I didn't ask for a recap of my accomplishments, I said coolly. "Why are you here?" He looked down at his hands. I noticed he wasn't wearing a wedding ring. "Emma and I are divorced," he said quietly. "She found out about everything. Not just you. There were others." I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no vindication, just a distant pity. Most of my money in the settlement. My business partners bought me out when the scandal affected our clients. He looked up, his eyes pleading. "I've lost everything, Zara, and you've come to me because because I made the biggest mistake of my life letting you go," he said, leaning forward. "We had something real. I know I destroyed your trust, but I've changed. I've been in therapy. I understand now why I did what I did." I almost laughed. "You think I care why you did it? You stole 5 years of my life, Marcus. You isolated me from everyone I loved. You made me doubt myself, my worth, my judgment." "I know," he whispered, "and I'll spend the rest of my life making this man I once thought I couldn't live without." There was a time when his return would have been everything I wanted. Now, it meant nothing. "Do you know what the irony is, Marcus?" I said, standing up and walking to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking San Francisco Bay. "If you hadn't betrayed me, I might still be in Montana, designing houses that never get built. Your betrayal forced me to rebuild, and look what I've created." I gestured to the office around us, the awards on the walls, the scale models of my projects. I have everything I ever wanted: a thriving career, a loving relationship with a man who respects me, reconnection with my family. I even have the house on the ridge. His eyes widened. What? The Malibu project, I explained. The centerpiece is a modernized version of the house I designed for us in Montana, the one you said we couldn't afford to build. It sold for $12 million before construction was even completed. Marcus looked stricken. Zara, please. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for a second chance. I have nothing left. Need you to leave. Just like that, he asked, his voice breaking. After everything we shared. Yes, Marcus. Just like that. I pressed the intercom. Lisa, please show Mr. Reynolds out. And David is here. Send him in. As Marcus stood to leave, the door opened and David entered. Tall, successful, kind, David, everything Marcus had pretended to be. Sorry I'm early, babe, David said, kissing my cheek before noticing Marcus. Oh, I didn't realize you were in a meeting. Not a meeting, I said clearly. Mr. Reynolds was just leaving, David. This is an old acquaintance from Montana. The two men shook hands, Marcus's eyes taking in David's confident posture, his expensive watch, the easy way he stood beside me as an equal. Nice to meet you, Marcus mumbled. Likewise, David replied politely. Montana, huh? Zaris told me about her time there. Beautiful country. Yes, Marcus said, his eyes meeting mine one last time. Beautiful, but ultimately not where she belonged. As Lisa escorted him out, David turned to me with concern. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. In many ways, I had. The ghost of the woman I used to be, the one who gave up everything for a man who never deserved her. I'm perfect, I replied, meaning it completely. Just closing a chapter that should have terrace overlooking the bay. I told him everything about Marcus' visit. Are you sure you're okay? He asked when I finished. That must have been intense. I leaned my head against his shoulder, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. You know what? To the man who lied to you for 5 years. I nodded. If he hadn't betrayed me, I might never have found the strength to rebuild my life on my own terms. I might never have started my firm, designed the Malibu project, met you. David pulled me closer. His loss, my immeasurable gain. As the lights of San Francisco began to twinkle in the gathering dusk, I thought about the journey that had brought Montana, the determined phoenix who rose from those ashes to create something even more beautiful than before. You know, I said softly, there's a saying that success is the best revenge, but it's not about revenge at all. It's about reclaiming your power, your purpose. David kissed the top of my head. And you've done that brilliantly. I smiled, feeling the last weight of my past finally lift away. Marcus had taken 5 years of my life, but he had inadvertently given me something precious in return. The knowledge that I could lose everything and still rebuild, something greater than I had before. That night, I slept peacefully in the arms of a man who loved the strong, successful woman I had become, not despite my broken past, but because of how beautifully I had mended myself. In the end, I hadn't just survived Marcus Reynolds, I had transcended him, and that was the sweetest victory of all.